There is no limit to the inspiration they provide. But this last Tuesday, a reminder that the athletes at the Olympics are about so much more than their moves and their medals. An excerpt from Cynthia McFadden's nightly news report. It never grows old. Young women and men in peak physical condition, battling for the right to be called champion. We hold our collective breath as we marvel at what they can do. This year, particularly so, as we struggle through an unprecedented pandemic and we long for heroes. This past week, we had two reminders of how fragile even the strongest of us can become. Tennis star Naomi Osaka, who so proudly lit the Olympic torch, was beaten in a match that everyone expected her to win, saying that she felt tremendous pressure. And then Tuesday morning, gymnast extraordinaire Simone Biles' shocking decision to withdraw from team competition. The Olympics brings out so much good in us, extraordinary sportsmanship, the drive for excellence, the marvel at mere mortals, and the extraordinary things they can do. There's the competition too, of course, the drive to win, which Michael Phelps knows all too well. He nearly quit at the peak of his career, talking openly these days about his challenges with mental health. Wednesday, Simone Biles withdrew from all the individual all-around competitions to focus on her mindfulness, her well-being, her mental health. And Thursday, the GOAT said the effects of this pandemic and stresses of this year had gotten to her. Just last night, she withdrew from the most recent competitions. Naomi Osaka is not alone. And the only island that Simone Biles and Michael Phelps is on is GOAT Island. That is, if I believe we're honest with ourselves, self included, we're all feeling just a little void in our hearts these days. That void has been exposed through the endless stress of the past year, and it has strangled our ability to see the bigger picture. That void has ripened through the prolonged anxiety of this pandemic and restrained our passion to love and be loved. That void is growing stronger every single day. We ignore it. And it's numbing our intuition to be who we are created to be. In his book, The Swan's Way, the French novelist Marcel Proust wrote of returning home late one evening in the dull of winter when he faced the prospect of a depressing tomorrow. The maid greeted him, and as she always did, he said he was tired, and she brought him a cup of hot tea and some cake. Being both tired and depressed, he at first refused them. Only at her insistence did he finally begin to drink the tea and eat the cake. Proust wrote that an unexplainable delight suddenly came over him. His anxieties and troubles seemed to vanish. Suddenly, he wrote, I ceased to feel mediocre, accidental, and mortal. He was at a loss to explain this wonderful sensation that had come over him. How could he taste tea and cake and produce peace? He drank more and he ate more, but he still could not decipher what was going on. Truth, he guessed, must be in himself and not in what he was eating and drinking. So Proust began to search within himself, and suddenly he began to remember. His mind had been moved by the delight of Chambray, France, where in childhood he visited his aunt, and she would feed him cake and hot tea. Proust had been unmoved by the sight of the tea and the cake, but the taste and the smell sent shockwaves through him, and it reminded him of an abundant life, long forgotten. Suddenly, he remembered that little town, the village church, the old house, the long-forgotten relatives, the flowers in the garden. The tea and the cake had recovered for Proust the memory and the mystery of a life long past. Is it possible to hand a person a cup and to say to that person, now drink this and remember who you are? It is not only possible, but I submit to you this morning that in a very real sense, that is exactly what we do when we partake in the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. By partaking in the bread and the wine, we're seeking to recover our experiences of the abundant life. Like the novelist Proust, it causes us to think back on life and the experiences we had long ago. And in remembering the abundance of that life, we begin to recover our own sense of identity in a real and transformative way. The sacrament calls us to remember who we are and whose we are. There is a God-shaped void inside of you, and me, and everyone. Only God can fill our longing to be connected to something bigger than the now. Only Christ can fill our yearning for meaningful relationships. And only God's Spirit can fill our hunger and our thirst for belonging. Josh got it right I think, when he was all of 2 or 3 years old. And as communion was being served, he said, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "Mommy, I love the blood." Friends, Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never thirst." Amen? Amen.